Welcome to the Heroes of the Storm Hero Deep Dive panel.
What's up, Blizzcon? Yeah. My name's Andrew Kinnerbrew. Around the office, people call me Brew. I'm a senior 3D artist with the Heroes team. Next to me, we got Matt Villers, senior game designer. Next to him is Kent Eric Hagman, lead hero designer. And at the end is Alex Nyman, live game designer. We want to thank you for joining us for the Hero Deep Dive panel. Today, Matt, Eric, and I are going to be talking to you about the two new heroes that we announced yesterday at opening ceremony, Alex Straza and Hanzo. Yeah. Then, Alex will wrap up the panel by talking about some stealth changes that we're bringing to the Nexus, followed by Q&A. Did you guys see the announcement trailer yesterday at opening ceremony? Yeah. Alex Straza, the first dragon aspect to come to the Nexus. She's an epic hero, and she heals by fire, and she turns into a dragon. But who is Alex Straza from the Blizzard universe? Well, in Cataclysm, we saw Alex Straza assemble the dragon aspects to go up against Deathwing. In Hearthstone, we saw Alex Straza manipulate health in a very impactful way. Today, we want to talk to you about how we bring this iconic hero with all her lore and fantasy to the Nexus. With such a beloved and epic hero, we wanted to do right by you guys and bring Alex Straza to Heroes in the right way. Artistically, I want to talk to you about some of the challenges and goals that we had when we developed Alex Straza. So let's start out with her elf form. This is her character concept. Now, Alex Straza is the queen of dragons, so we wanted her to be regal. We decked her out with ornamentation and jewelry. We like the idea of bringing her horn aesthetic into her armor. Now that we got the elf form figured out, we need to look at her other form, her dragon form. Now, this is the character concept for the dragon form. This is where we cover all the broad strokes. But I need to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the dragon in the room. You see, dragons are massive. Early on in the development, art and design wanted to make sure that this dragon was as large as we could possibly make her. So, we didn't want a drake, we wanted a dragon. So, in order to do that, we need to figure out her scale, and we have to bring in some friends from the Nexus. One of our larger heroes is Asmodan. In the Diablo universe, he's the size of a 3-story building. In the Nexus, he's a functional size. Now, stay with me on this one. We don't use Banana for scale on the Heroes team, but we do use Uther for scale. He's our medium-height hero. He's our baseline. So now that we have Uther and Asmodan, we can create a lineup. And we come up with a size that we can handle with Alex Straza. We tuck her wings back into her body. We create animation rules that allow her body to be compact, all while making sure that we don't eclipse smaller heroes like Chromie. But now that we've got scale knocked out, we need to figure out what to do with her movement. You see, with large lumbering creatures, we're asking a lot of you when we say that these guys can turn on a dime. So our art, animation team, tech art, and engineering teams jumped into action. They created a system that allowed for characters to use additional animations when they turn. So you know this guy. This is Kel'Thuzad. I like to call him KT myself. And when he turns around, you'll notice that his tapestries actually move in a corresponding direction. Now here's similar tech applied to Alex Straza, and if you notice on the right, the turn text enabled, and her head and tail create kind of a C shape. This is so that she looks where she moves. All right, so now that we got scale and movement locked down, we can mark done on this dragon. And before I hand it off to Matt, who's going to talk to you about Alexstrasza's kit, I got one more thing to show you. Now, the art team has been working really hard to create additional skins for Alexstrasza, and we're going to be releasing these on her launch. But you don't have to wait to play these. You can play these now on the show floor. Check them out.
Thanks, Brew. Hello, BlizzCon. I'm Matt Villers, and I was the hero designer on Alexstrasza. Now, we've just heard a lot about the artistic side of adapting Alexstrasza's fantasy and bringing her into the Nexus. And it turns out that our approach on the design side was not all that different. When we set out to design Alexstrasza's abilities, we had two major sources of inspiration to draw from. First off, she's a dragon. Dragons are awesome. You could build a whole hero based just around that. But Alexstrasza is not just any old dragon. She's the dragon aspect of life. And we wanted her gameplay to reflect that, for her to interact with life and health in interesting ways. Today, I'm going to talk you through Alexstrasza's kit, some ideas we tried that didn't quite work out, and how each of her abilities tie into that core part of her fantasy, the dragon and the aspect of life. First off, let's go through her basic abilities. Alexstrasza's first basic ability, her Q, is Gift of Life. This is her primary heal, and it allows her to sacrifice a portion of her own health and give it directly to an ally. Because Alexstrasza spends her life to heal, she has to strike a balance between keeping herself healthy and keeping her allies healthy. This becomes a very core part of her gameplay. The strength of the heal scales with Alexstrasza's health, so the more healthy she is, the more effectively she can heal her team. But if she's going to be spending all this health to heal everyone else, she needs a way to heal herself as well. That leads us to her second basic ability, her W, Abundance. This is a powerful area of effect heal, and is Alexstrasza's primary source of self-sustain. It keeps her Gift of Life heal engine going. We were actually inspired to do Abundance by the Storm Drakes in World of Warcraft Cataclysm. What's cool about these guys is when you engage them, they create a healing well on the ground at their location. This rapidly restores their health. So if you wanted to damage them, you had to first move them out of the healing well. And then, as a bonus, you could move your own party into the healing well and take that healing for yourself. We thought this last part was particularly cool, and we wanted to explore it. What would indiscriminate healing look like in Heroes of the Storm? That's a heal that can work on allies or enemies. We gave it a try. It turns out that in our game, indiscriminate healing doesn't feel great. Because you're healing both allies and enemies, you kind of have to do math to know how much you're really healing. It's very hard to feel your impact. So we did cut that part. But we really liked that Alexstrasza with Abundance could create a zone on the ground that you could fight over, almost like a miniature map objective. That gameplay was really fun, and we wanted to keep it. So the final version of Abundance has Alexstrasza create a zone on the ground that, after a delay, will explode in a burst of healing energy. This is a powerful area of effect heal that restores a percentage of maximum health to heroes standing in it. But the area is fairly small, so enemies can punish you for standing in there. Something like a well-placed Junkrat mine can deny the heal entirely. So you have to be careful when and where you use it. All right, we've heard a lot about Alexstrasza's healing. Let's talk about her dragon side. If you've played World of Warcraft, you might be familiar with Blackwing Lair. You might remember that the dragons in Blackwing Lair used an ability called Flame Buffet. This was a stacking flame damage effect. It didn't hurt a lot at first, but as it hit you repeatedly, the damage ramped up. Alexstrasza's third and final basic ability is Flame Buffet, and it works a lot like that. It's a simple line skill shot, lights enemies on fire, doesn't do much damage, but it has a very short cooldown. And if you hit someone who's already on fire, the damage is increased significantly, and it applies a powerful slow effect. Flame Buffet allows Alexstrasza to harass enemy heroes, as well as to slow them down and keep them away from her team. Now, Flame Buffet is really cool, but we wanted more dragon than that, a lot more dragon. We wanted a dragon on the battlefield. And that led us to Alexstrasza's trait, Dragon Queen. This allows Alexstrasza to turn into her dragon form, empowers her health, her damage. But remember, Alexstrasza is the dragon aspect of life, and we wanted her dragon form to be about empowering her healing. If you're familiar with Restoration Shaman from World of Warcraft, they have an ability called Ascendance. This is a button where your party is low on health and there's lots of damage coming in. You just can't keep up. So you activate Ascendance and go into super healer mode for a short time, and this extra output lets you stabilize your party and save the day. Dragon Queen for Alexstrasza works very much like that. In addition to empowering her stats, it improves all of her basic abilities. Her Gift of Life becomes Breath of Life, with a greatly reduced cooldown and no health cost. Her Abundance becomes Preservation, healing a wider area for a greatly increased amount. And her Flame Buffet is replaced with Wing Buffet. With a powerful flap of her wings, she sends enemy heroes flying away from her team. All right, now we can talk about heroics. Alexstrasza's first heroic ability is Lifebinder. This was inspired by her appearance in Hearthstone, where she can set a hero's health to a specific value. We thought this was really cool, and we wanted to try it out in Heroes. Now, what I'm about to show you is one of the very early versions of Lifebinder we tried. It has Alexstrasza create a zone on the ground that, after a delay, will rebalance the health of all heroes standing in it. Enemy, ally, doesn't matter. We thought this would be a huge moment to swing team fights and feel really impactful. So we tried it out. Take a look. Now, it turns out that in a fast-paced game like ours, setting everyone's health to an average value, it just felt kind of average. It was really hard to notice those movements in the health bar. A lot of the time, you'd actually end up hurting your own team or healing your enemies. Not exactly the kind of impact you want from a heroic, right? You want it to feel awesome. So we made some refinements. The final version of Lifebinder has Alexstrasza link herself directly to an ally. After a short delay, the hero with the lowest health of the two gets boosted up to the same health percent as the higher health hero. Right? This allows a healthy Alexstrasza to do a powerful burst heal on an ally. Or a badly injured Alexstrasza can link to a healthy ally and boost herself up, kind of restart that Gift of Life healing engine. Her second heroic ability is Cleansing Flame. This allows Alexstrasza to fly up into the sky and soar over the battlefield, raining down, healing, and damaging fireballs as she goes. It's an awesome Dragon Fantasy moment. Now, something you may not know is that I was also the hero designer on Probius, and during Probius's development, we tried a heroic that was a lot like this. We called it Mothership, and it had Probius warp off the battlefield onto his Protoss mothership and rain down destruction. Now, this was a really cool heroic, but we didn't ship it with Probius, and there's a couple reasons why. First off, it had a limited number of shots and a limited amount of time. You were frantically trying to get the shots off because you didn't want to waste any, and it made it hard to think about aiming. It also, at the end, had Probius warp down where he started. So often that would be right into the waiting arms of the enemy team, who would then blow the poor little probe up. But the biggest reason we didn't keep it on Probius is that he had this kind of builder and advanced setup gameplay that the ability just wasn't fitting with. However, Alexstrasza gave us another chance to do this awesome heroic, and we made some important changes. First off, the fireballs from Cleansing Flame come down at your mouse cursor on a fixed interval. So you are focusing entirely on aiming, the healing and damage to get as much value as possible. We also allow Alexstrasza at the end to choose a landing location nearby, so she doesn't have to just drop right into the enemy team and get ganked right away. You can see here that the cursor for Cleansing Flame shows the time between shots and the number of shots remaining. When you run out of shots, It allows you to choose a nearby landing location. These improvements made the ability feel much better to use. They allow Alexstrasza to have epic support moments from the sky for her team. So that's Alexstrasza. I had a great time working on her, and I feel like her abilities turned out awesome. Thank you. And that they thank you very much. And that they tie back into those two core parts of her fantasy, the dragon and the aspect of life. But don't take my word for it. She's playable on the show floor today. If you haven't gotten to try her out, definitely go check her out. Now, we do have one more dragon we're here to talk about today. So for that, I'd like to welcome Brew back up to tell you all about Hanzo.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, guys. It's me again. Yeah. I got a question for you. Any Hanzo mains? Come on, it's a safe place. You can tell us. Hanzo's one of my favorite heroes in Overwatch. Now, with Alexstrasza, we talked about some of the typical questions that come up when we're developing a hero. But with Hanzo, I want to talk to you about what it takes to bring a character from a first-person game like Overwatch to a top-down game like Heroes of the Storm. So the Overwatch team is great. They give us a lot of amazing reference materials, but all those reference materials are based or cater to a first-person camera. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, why does a first-person camera matter? Well, Overwatch is a game of first-person perspective, which means that the up-close detail required is high. Now, Heroes is a top-down game, which means that all those same details are further away. This creates a challenge for us when we bring a character over from a Blizzard universe, because we need to take a character like Hanzo and make them recognizable from this distance. So a good example of this is actually Hanzo's bow. So up top, we've got the Overwatch bow, and at the bottom is the Hero's bow. And right off, you're probably noticing that the Hero's bow has gotten a little bit larger. The grip is about the same, but everything else is bigger. Now, I want you to pay attention to the center bit here. And all the details have gotten larger. Silhouette's gotten bigger. And as you travel down the limb of the bow, you'll notice that the silhouette's gotten exaggerated as well. Now, it's easy to see or say that Overwatch characters are simply copy-paste. This couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, in a moment, I'm going to show you exactly what a copy-paste version of Hanzo looks like in Heroes of the Storm. When I do this, I want you to pay attention to his silhouette. All right, so there he is. So this looks great in Overwatch, right? But there's some things that we need to do. We need to push and pull his trademark features and make him a little bit more recognizable from this game view. So here we got the Hanzo from Heroes of the Storm, and you'll notice that his silhouette's a little bit bulkier. Everyone in our game gets a little swole. It's true. Chest gets a little bit more beef, shoulders more prominent, and for those of you who are fans of the man bun, that got a little bit more bulk as well. All right. Come on. Cool. So we've been making Hanzo more recognizable from this game view, which is great. But you're probably saying something along the lines of, why are these adjustments necessary? So in order to explain that, I need to talk about something you probably have heard a video game artist say at one point in time, and that's budget. You see, if you're new to game development and we say texture budget or polygon budget, we're not talking about monetary cost. What we're talking about is file size and what it takes for your computer to load that information on the screen. And that's important because we load a lot of information on the screen. You got minions, mercenary camps, player characters, UI, structures, trees, doodads, all while making these things recognizable. Every game has a character budget, just like every computer has a limit. It's kind of like a road that can only hold so many cars at any given moment. And it's important for us to stay within those limits. because then we can put things like this from Overwatch into this, Heroes. Everything we do is for the game view. It's about lovingly recreating these characters so they look as awesome as possible. So now that you've heard all about why Hanzo looks so good, I'm going to hand it over to Kent Eric, who's going to talk to you more about Hanzo's power.
Thank you, Brew. What's up, Blizzcon? I hope you guys are having an awesome time. I'm really excited to be with you guys today. My name is Kent Eric. I'm the lead hero designer, and I had the wonderful privilege to work on the design of Hanzo. And let's go ahead and let's talk about that. So usually what happens is that every year we'll come up here and we'll talk to you guys about how we translated the fantasy of a character who was in one game or one universe and related those mechanics into Heroes of the Storm, much like Matt just did an excellent job of with Alexstrasza. But with Hanzo, this is a little bit different. This is a pretty well-known character. I thought previously to 5 minutes ago that all of you guys were Hanzo mains. I'm very disappointed. It's OK. It's OK. But this is a guy you guys know a lot about, right? There's some expectations. We expect to see him firing arrows at a long distance. We expect to see some scatter arrows bouncing off of walls. So instead, I want to do something a little bit different this year. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the nuts and bolts, or the mathematics and mechanics behind hero design and creating these heroes. Now, in order to do that, for Hanzo specifically, I'm going to need to walk you real quickly through his core damaging abilities on his base kit. So let's go ahead and get started with his basic attack. Now, Hanzo has our extra attack range that you've seen on heroes like Ana, or Raynor, or Nova, or Sergeant Hammer. But also, his attack speed is a little bit slower, and his attacks pack a bit heavier punch. Now, his first ability is Stormbow on the Q button. This is a charged-up ability. While Hanzo charges it, the distance the arrow can travel grows over time. Hanzo can also move while this is charging, allowing him to get that proper position for firing the Stormbow. Very useful when fighting heroes like Sonya. And finally on the W is Scatter Arrow, using some brand new ricochet technologies that our amazing team on the engineering side of things put in there. You can see we're showing you where these arrows go, and it's great in narrow corridors like this poor Li Ming is about to discover. Don't be Li Ming. Bad things will happen. So when we had the initial design for these abilities in mind, we got them into the game, but we needed to plug in an initial damage value. For his basic attack, for instance, should it do 5 damage or 5,000 damage? Probably neither of those numbers, but we need to type literally some kind of number in there, right? So what are we going to do? So what we do is we look at similar abilities that exist in the game that might have some correlation. So for his basic attack, we looked at Nova with anti-armor shells, also a very slow attack period, and we tried to match it to a value that was roughly equivalent. For his Stormbow ability, we looked at Chromie's Sandblast, as they're both long-range line skill shots on a relatively low cooldown. And for Scatter Arrow, we looked at Vala's multi-shot and other area effect abilities to try to match again, find those right numbers. Once we got those in the game, it was all about adjusting his total power levels. So we had this in. We would do some AI play tests where we would spin up the hero alone against 9 AI and just play a game and look at his total output. We'd compare it to other ranged assassins that were in that game. And let's say Hanzo was about 15% too high. Well, then let's lower all of his numbers by about 15%. If he was 10% too low, let's bring them all up by about 10%. Once we had that in a relatively decent spot where he was pretty close to our other ranged assassins, we brought him into our daily design playtests. So the design group here, we playtest every morning these new heroes with these kits and these adjustments to see how it's all feeling. And so we brought him in there. And what I'm about to show you is one of our output logs for all of Hanzo's damage. Now, there's going to be a lot of numbers. Don't worry about them. It's kind of scary. But there you go. There's everything Hanzo did to minions, heroes, along with some stats that we don't really need for the purposes of this talk. Instead, we're going to focus on this smaller subset of numbers right there, the damage he dealt to heroes. So let's go ahead and zoom in on those numbers right there and clean it up a little bit. But we have the technology. We can do one better. We've got pie charts. Personal favorite of mine. I know you guys are all thinking this morning, you know what makes my Blizzcon even better? Pie charts. Well, I've got you covered, fam. Don't worry. So what's really helpful about this is we can immediately see some things. So this game was on April 19th on Tomb of the Spider Queen, one of our very first design playtests. And immediately with this pie chart, you can start to see some things jump out at you. You might notice, for instance, that his Q ability, Stormbow, and his ultimate Dragon Strike, oh my gosh, they're like consuming the entire pie chart. You know, his basic attack is just a sliver. And Scatter Arrow, why would you even waste your mana or your mind share casting that ability? And that's what's great about these pie charts. They quickly paint a quick picture for us to get things in line. So we actually have another word for these in the office. We call these power pies. And what I'm about to show you is a completely fictional, idealized power pie for a ranged assassin that does not exist. And that's right here. And you'll notice in this very fictional example, we have a nice, evenly distributed power pie. I mean, it's not perfectly even. I mean, no power pie probably should be. But it's much more distributed. To clearly master this totally made-up hero, you're going to need to learn how to use their basic attack, their Q, their W, their E, their R. Like, you need to know it all. And that's where we wanted to head with Hanzo. So in order to get to a more healthy power pie, we're going to need to do some math. Lots of math. That's OK. Hanzo, he's the master of simple geometry. We've got this. We're going to bring out some charts here. So starting with that very first playtest, in order to get there, we need to do some adjustments. Now, we wanted to keep his total damage output roughly the same. And in order to do that, we're going to nerf Stormbow by about 10% and Dragon Strike by 35%, while almost tripling Scatter Arrow's damage because we were way off on that initial balance. Now, you'll notice there's no change to his basic attack. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But after making some adjustments, here we were 5 days later on Braxis Holdout, April 24th. And you can notice we have a much healthier balance between both his Stormbow and his Scatter Arrow. This means that to play Hanzo well, you're going to have to master both these abilities. So we're in a much better spot. But there's still another problem lurking that the power pies are slightly alluding to, and that's the basic attack and some other issues. You see, we'd started to play Hanzo for almost a week now, and we were starting to feel like maybe we've got too many snipers in the game. We love Chromie. Chromie's amazing. Are we any Chromie mains out there? Oh, you guys are so dedicated. I love it. But with Hanzo, we didn't want to steal from what Chromie was doing. And at the time, Hanzo's Q ability, Stormbow, and W ability, Scatter Arrow, were much longer range than they were in the videos I just showed you. And his basic attack actually had like a 3-second cooldown between the attacks, which was massive. And so we realized we needed to make some adjustments. So we brought down the ranges on those two abilities, and we halved the time between his basic attacks to 1.5 seconds, which is what we've got for you guys today. And what was great about this is that it encouraged Hanzo to use that basic attack more often. What's really great about that is that when a character is basic attacking you, that usually means they're within your threat radius so that you can actually engage in some counterplay, something that was missing because of his very long range. So let's see what happened after we made these adjustments. So this was on April 27th on Infernal Shrines. One of our live designers, Adam Jackson, was actually playing Hanzo. And maybe we've gone a little overboard on that basic attack. Suddenly, Stormbow's not so great. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments and see what happens. So here we are on May 1st. Our very own Matt Villers was playing Hanzo on Dragonshire. And now you can see we've got we got a Matt Villers fan out there, that's for sure. We've got a much more well-balanced power pie here. But there's still one more wrench coming down the pipe, and that's talents. And specifically for Hanzo, we've got some really cool questing talents on his level 1, each focused on those 3 primary damaging abilities so that you can kind of build a build around them. And when we put these in, do you think they might affect the power pie? Well, let's just take a look and see what happens. So here we were, first day with questing talents, May 11th. Towers of Doom, I was playing Hanzo. The other designers who were playing against me probably weren't very happy that game, and understandably so. Maybe we've got an overtuned quest talent for the very first game. Very possible. But at the same time, I also played Hanzo and Hanamura, and I was testing out the Q-Quest talent on Stormbow. And you can see the basic attack is still a pretty significant portion of the power pie. So maybe it's not just the Quest talent. Maybe there's another talent in the tree that's starting to warp his power pie, and so we need to take a look. And so that's part of what's going on here. We're doing a lot of testing and refinement. Like I said, we play test every morning, constantly going through these new talents and tweaking and adjustments to make these heroes shine for you guys, our players. And I'm going to show you one of our final play tests here. This was on May 25th. Matt Cooper, our lead live designer, was playing Hanzo on Infernal Shrines. You can see here he went the basic attack quest, but we still have a very well-balanced, healthy power pie. Maybe his scatter arrows could have been a little more on point, but we're in a great spot, especially compared to where we started back on April 19th. We've gone from there basically being 2 wedges to now good 4 wedges with some room for growth based on player skill. And so with that, we were ready to finish off Hanzo's design and hand it over to the live team, who then executes the final balance. And they'll get into like the real nitty-gritty, like, hey, Alex, actually, I think you did the balance on Hanzo, right? Hey, Kent, Stormbow, I'm going to lower its damage from 205 to 200. Like, OK, you find out what that final little number is, and they'll bring it home. Hanzo is here now, playable on the show floor. If you guys haven't gotten a chance, go check him out. Scatter arrow some of your enemies to death. It's great fun. But I want to actually welcome up Alex Nyman to talk to you guys about some of the updates coming to our live heroes.
Thanks, Kent. So in Heroes of the Storm, not only do we work really hard to make sure that all our new heroes, like Hanzo and Alexstrasza, both feel and play awesome, but we're also actively working on all of our existing heroes to make sure that they're just as fun and dynamic to play as well. So my name's Alex Nyman. I'm with the live design team. If you watched yesterday's What's Next panel, we talked about how we're going to be making some changes to the way that stealth characters look in our game. I'll go into that briefly again and explain why we're doing what we're doing, as well as some of the hero-specific adjustments we're going to be making alongside them. So for a long time, stealth has presented an interesting challenge for us as a design team. I bet a lot of you probably don't see the 3 stealth characters running around on that screen right now, and that would put you kind of with the majority of our player base. It's pretty hard to actually see that shimmer that they show when they haven't been revealed. But as you get to the higher levels of organized play, players get really, really good at spotting this shimmer. In fact, these characters aren't really invisible at all anymore once you get there. So this presents an interesting challenge for us to balance in both scenarios. Basically, this eye test that we've created creates a large gap in the effectiveness of these heroes, and we really have a hard time balancing them for both scenarios. So what we decided to do is actually make our stealth characters easier to see. We're going to be shifting a lot of the power out of this eye test and instead putting it into other aspects of stealth that we think are really fun and interactive and cool. Things like the fact that they're invisible on the minimap, the strategic advantage of being untargetable by abilities until you've been revealed. We also want to use this as a time to reinforce hero-specific mechanics that are tied to each of these stealths as well. So I'm going to go into more details on what those are after I show you the new stealth. So here on the right, you can actually see what the new stealth shader looks like. It's much easier to see, right? OK, so let's talk about our new changes that we have coming. So first up is Nova. Now for Nova, we want to be sure that whatever change we make, we really reinforce the fantasy that we think Nova is. She's a precision sniper that uses hit-and-run tactics and deception to keep herself alive and make sure that she can target the people that she really needs to on the battlefield. So to really play out that accuracy side of things, we're taking a modified version of the Snipe Master talent and applying it to her baseline. So this means that whenever Nova successfully lands a snipe on an enemy hero, her next snipe will do more damage. This will continue to stack until she misses. We're also increasing her movement speed whenever she's stealthed. And this allows her to get to where she needs on the battlefield. But to make sure that she can also get some benefits out of this movement speed, even after teamfight has started and she's revealed herself, she's going to get a new active ability that, in addition to a regular way of stealthing, she can press her 1 key to jump back in to her cloak, similar to how the Ghost Protocol talent works on live. All right, so that's Nova. The next character I want to talk about is Valera. So for Valera, we view her as our preeminent disabling character. She should be really good at picking one enemy hero on the opposing team and drastically reducing the effectiveness of that hero. We also know that Valeera really relies on stealth more than most other characters in the game because she gets a brand new set of abilities whenever she vanishes. So we want to be sure that Valeera players still have some fun tools to use even when she's stealth, even if opponents can see her. So what we're doing to Valeera to enhance her disabling aspect, we're going to be increasing the duration of Garrote's silence. And while we are reducing the stun duration of Cheap Shot, one of our other vanished abilities, we're going to add a powerful blind to it as well. So this way, Valeera players are making this choice of, do I really want to shut down someone's ability to basic attack for a while, or am I looking to maybe stop someone from casting a lot of abilities? Now, to give her additional kind of fun tools to play with, the way what we're going to be doing is if Valeera remains vanished for at least 3 seconds, the next vanish ability that she uses will have greatly increased range and teleport her behind her target. So this is really fun to play with Valeera. You're really thinking about, oh, like work on my opening, get that perfect spot. But not only is it fun for Valeera, as we continue to play test it, we actually found that it's really enjoyable for opponents as well. And hear me out. The reason is it felt really rewarding as an opponent to knock Valeera out of this stealth so that she would lose this powerful part of her toolkit that she really was relying on. So it was sort of a win-win for us. Now, while Valeera relies on stealth probably the most of all of our characters, we actually don't think it's too core to who Samuro is, while he does have stealth. But what we did want to use this as an opportunity to make some changes to Samuro and really reinforce what we think is important and cool and special about him. And that's this game of 3-card Monty he plays with his illusions. And so if you're not familiar with Samuro, he can activate his mirror image ability and create 2 illusions of himself. And what Samuro's trying to do is keep opponents guessing so they're not sure which one is the real player and which ones are just copies. So we want to really put a lot more control and power into Samuro players so that they can play this game much more often and much more frequently and have a lot more control over what they're doing. So to add to that control, we're taking basically an ability that used to be reserved for the Illusion Master talent, or heroic ability, at level 10, and putting it on his trait. So now Samuro will be able to press his D button and target any of his illusions to swap places with them, starting at level 1. To also give Samuro players more control over their illusions, whenever he activates Mirror Image and creates 2 illusions of himself, the real Blade Master will always be closest to wherever your mouse cursor is. So again, a lot of control and a lot of cool things that Samuro players can do. This is really important because it's a lot about mastery. We want to encourage Samuro players to have a lot of mastery and not sort of have opponents just sort of guess and figure things out, or maybe just counterpick them instead. Now, because we're giving Samuro so much more control over his illusions, we want to be sure that their focus of them is still on keeping Samuro alive and not just a bunch of pets that are maybe just sticking after you all the time. So we're actually going to keep Samuro's overall damage about the same, but take a lot of that power instead and pull it from his illusions and put it into the Blade Master. So Samuro will hit harder, but the illusions will hit much less. This also has the added benefit of, as an opponent, once you realize where an illusion is, you can realize it's not really as much a threat. All right, now, the last character I want to talk about today is Zeratul. So Zeratul, we're actually pretty happy with the way he plays overall. We don't think we need to make a lot of wholesale changes. He's really technically demanding. He has really neat and flashy and cool plays. There's a lot of mastery to controlling him. It's really cool. He has a good niche in the battlefield in his high mobility, threat to the backline in a lot of ways. So all we want to do is really reinforce that, but also give him maybe a couple new tricks as we go. So what we're going to do is take the Vorpal Blade talent that previously was available on level 1 and give it to all Zeratul players. So what this means is that whenever Zeratul basic attacks an enemy hero, he can reactivate his 1 key to teleport back to that guy. That's really cool too, because the more ways we give Zeratul, I said I wasn't going to do that, Zeratul a way to teleport to his enemies, he actually can use his blink in a lot of multiple ways too. So he doesn't have to just use his blink or whatever talents he has to close the gap. But again, more options means more fun that Zeratul players can have. Now, for a long time, Zeratul has had 2 heroic abilities, but we weren't really too happy with the way that Shadow Assault really played out. Before I said that we view a lot of what Zeratul is strategic options and many choices in really cool ways. And Shadow Assault sort of limits your choices instead. You pick it and you really just focus down one guy, and you're not really thinking too much about what the rest of you are doing. So we thought this would be a great time to replace Shadow Assault with a brand new heroic ability we're calling Might of the Nerazim. So the way Might of the Nerazim works is it has a pretty short cooldown, right now around 15 seconds. And whenever you activate it, it will replicate whatever the last basic ability you cast was. So if you had just used a cleave, you can hit your R and do a second cleave. Or if you had just used a blink, you can use R to blink again. So there's lots of really cool decision making and sort of versatility that you can get out of Zeratul. So I'll show a little video of sort of what he's going to be capable of with this new heroic ability. Hopefully it plays. Well, it's really cool. You probably can't even see it because it gets you stealth, so I don't know, you can't see what's going on. Anyway, there's lots of really cool, fun things that you can do with it. So Hanzo, Alex Straza, and our stealth characters, with all of their new tricks, are playable right now on the show floor. We're really excited to hear all of your feedback on them. And if you haven't had a chance to play them yet, go for it. They'll be available in the live game in the coming months. And we're really excited to see how they work in the Nexus. So we're going to move on to the Q&A section now. If you have any questions, you guys can go ahead and line up. But before we do that, I just want to reiterate how thankful I am to have all of you out here with us today at Blizzcon. It's a really reinvigorating experience for all of us designers up here. Because in a lot of ways, we don't view this as just our game, but it's all of our game. And it's really awesome to have you here with us today. So thank you for coming to the Hero Deep Dive panel. See you in the Nexus, everyone.
How about we do left side first?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Cool. And then make sure you get close to the mic whenever you're up.
Hi. I have a question about a mechanic that you guys kind of removed and then reintroduced when you put Garrosh into the game. It's like when, for example, like Stitches, when he hooks, like the character gets stick into the wall and don't like jump over the wall, like bounce into like the territory. So like when Garrosh was introduced, you could throw enemy heroes inside your like turrets. So like, what's your guys' thoughts on that?
So the way we view it is simply, so Garrosh, it's a pull, right? So Stitches still can't hook over a wall and pull someone through it. Whereas Garrosh really has to hook you first from outside, and then he can toss you over. It's similar to things we've seen with Diablo, honestly, with his overpower. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think it just sort of made sense. I don't think it would make a lot of sense for Garrosh to throw people and then they'd hit an invisible wall in the air.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Got the other side?
Hi, I'm a Chromie main, and I really enjoy her. So when I was playing Hanzo, I was really interested in his Q. I was just wanted to ask, when I played him, even with the global cast, the autocast on, when I released Q, I had to hit it again to actually fire. I wondered if that was intentional.
It's currently intentional. It's what we got. But I will have you know, can we get a shout out for Andy Thorne, an amazing engineer on our team? These guys understand the hard work he's doing. He actually got us an improvement for Stormbow. Literally, I think it was Thursday or Wednesday. He called me over. He's like, "Hey, can you check this out?" So what we're hoping to ship is that when you press, you can just press and release, and it'll fire off the cube for Hanzo even while you're moving. So
Thanks,
we
that's
have some
good.
improvements. It should be coming with Hanzo ship.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to left side.
Thank you. This is a question I asked yesterday, but I was wanting to ask it to more of the art guys. If McCree were hypothetically to join Heroes of the Storm, would you remove his cigar? And if you didn't, would you give Tychus back his cigar?
I think Alan said it best when he said, yes, we'll give McCree, or give Tychus McCree's cigar.
All right, thank you, guys.
Just wait here, because they're going to have a question over here.
Over there on the right. What we got there?
Oh.
I know him.
Mysterious questioner.
Hello.
Can you translate this?
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry.
All right.
Did you get that?
Yep. Hi, Probius. Nice to see you. I know. So what Probius would like to know, for those who don't speak Probe, is for me and Kent, what's our favorite talent on each of the new heroes?
That's a very insightful and helpful question.
He was programmed well.
You want to start? You want me?
Sure, I'll go for it. So for me, it's Alexstrasza's level 20 Ancient Flame. This is kind of caps off her E talents. See, the big thing with her E, when we were working on it for a long time, is these talents are about getting you in dragon form more often, and you can't actually use Flame Buff It, her E, while you're in dragon form. So having this talent at 20 that then allows Alexstrasza's basic attacks in dragon form to apply Flame Buff It kind of allows you to feel more rewarded for taking those other Flame Buff It talents along the way.
I'd say one of my favorite Hanzo talents is called Mounted Archery. So his trait, Natural Agility, to counter that of Genji's Cyber Agility, I'll let you think about that, lets him leap over walls. And so what Mounted Archery does is when he leaps and lands on the wall, he's instantly mounted, and that mount's got a move speed boost. It's really fun. Just very great. Great question, Probius.
Hey, awesome.
See you later, buddy.
Aw, he's so cute.
He is cute. Off to the left, please.
Hi, I was wondering how you decide which heroes get added into Heroes of the Storm. Is it just whim, or is someone like, hey, we want this guy in here?
No, it's a great question. So we have a list of about, I think we're down to like 180 heroes now in the office. I think we started at 200 about 2 years ago and slowly been whittling them away, of just awesome heroes and characters from across all of Blizzard's games that we'd love to add. And of course, you guys, the fans, you guys do these awesome fan website polls that we're checking all the time to see, what is it the community is just begging and clamoring Kel'Thuzad for, Kel'Thuzad all the time, Kel'Thuzad. And so we take some mixture of that as well, but we're also trying to make sure we bring heroes from different universes all the time. In addition to that, different roles and archetypes. So we have healers. Like we tried to make sure this year we got a lot of healers to you guys. So we got Lucio, Stukov, Ana, now Alexstrasza. Great here if you're a healer player. But in addition to that, on the art side, I know that they want to get a lot of different shapes and silhouettes and sizes and just different creature types as well. And so there's a bunch of different factors that we weigh in, and it's constant, back and forth. And it's never a matter of, if we'll do a character. It's always a matter of when we'll get to that character. Yeah. But thank you.
If you guys want more creature types, you guys try Morgul.
Cool.
Yep.
I like it.
Totally.
Other side?
Hi. There are some questions about Arthas and Uther specifically, their models being a little bit more squat, and they kind of look dwarfish, and we were wondering if maybe, this way, if we might see a taller Lich King or a taller Uther in the future.
So we're happy with the size of them, but to answer your question, making them look more squat, what we would like to do is we would like to make their height be equivalent. So he would look less squat, but the same relative height. Does that make sense?
So you are considering like some adjustments to the model to make them look more svelte, I guess?
Definitely. I mean, we are looking at that as an option. Okay. Uther and Arthas are a couple of our older models. Yeah. So we definitely have heard your feedback, and we want to do it. It's just a matter of when.
Right. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Left side, please.
First off, hi, Andrew. You might recognize me as the guy who always harassed you every weekend at Albertsons.
Hi, Logan. How are you?
Good. I love Tyrael, but he feels really stale, and his mana cost seems way higher compared to a lot of newer characters, and I was wondering if you were looking at him and any changes you could make in the future.
You want lower mana costs?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
I had a question about your classifications for different heroes. There's been a lot of questions about tanks and healers versus warriors and supports and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. So I had any questions about if you had a plan on redesigning your system of classification, or if you design your hero specifically for the classifications that are already there.
Right, no, that's a great question. So early on in the game, we were really free form with it. It's like, hey, we got warriors, assassins, and supports. And then we have Abathur. I don't know what to do with this guy, right? So we made that specialist category, and we decided, if a character's got a hint of that oddballness, let's chuck them into specialist category. And that worked fine, a few years ago. But now we're going to do a point where, as designers, we've evolved. As players, you guys have evolved. The game, our relationship with it has evolved to where, we kind of have this language of like, hey, bring some frontline, make sure we got at least one healer, right? All these new words that weren't in our lexicon a few years ago. So going forward, it is something we would love to update the role system to better reflect the way the community has embraced this game. And so we'd love to take warriors and split them out into tanks and bruisers. We'd love to take supports and split them out into healers and supports. In fact, we did a little bit of this. If you go into like Quick Match or Verse AI, you'll notice that when you hover over and you try to select somebody, we've got like that capitalized keyword of the different types. That's where we'd like to move to eventually. It's just a matter of when we think is the right time to get to the game. But it's definitely, we think, something that would help the player base as well, like kind of get all on the same page about, hey, this guy's a tank and this guy's a bruiser. Like, we need at least one tank on the team. Thrall is great, but he's not a tank for the team.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the left side, please.
I have a question for Alex. You recently changed Chen to where whenever he drinks, he instantly gets brew, and then he's been receiving a lot of subsequent nerfs. Do you think that you would potentially ever change that or revert it and potentially give him back a lot of his power? Because, like, I know you were nerfing him because the freshest ingredient bug was giving him a lot.
Yeah. So Chen has a really interesting effect. Whenever you touch Chen, he's such an interconnected character that has such an engine that works that there's usually a lot of fallout from any changes we make to him. So I don't know that we're planning on making any changes immediately right now, but we're always keeping an eye on him, and we'll continue to watch to make maybe changes as the meta changes or things like that. Chen's also a really interesting character where I think everybody, there's really passionate Chen players out there that really want him to be awesome all the time. And so there's also some slight rose-tinted glasses where people have realized if Chen was really, really, really good, no one's really enjoying that experience either. So it's like a balancing act. We want to make sure that we see Chen just enough that he's awesome and fun without having him be OP. So yeah, I mean, we're keeping an eye on Chen, and we'll always look to make changes whenever we think he needs it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Back over to the right.
Hey, with the new invisibility shader, have you guys played around with changing the visibility of the character based on how fast it's moving?
We have done, so what we do have, we haven't done that specifically, but we tried to get some of that flavor, and I didn't talk about it today, but we talked a little bit yesterday, is that we added, it's not available at BlizzCon, but what we're trying right now, and I think we'll go to the PTR at some point soon, will be that if a stealth character ever stays still for more than a second and a half, they actually completely disappear. So they're completely gone. I was actually just listening to Kent talk about this yesterday. It was a really cool thing of that is it adds a lot of that kind of mystery and fantasy of you're never really sure if a stealth character could be around. And while it doesn't come into play a lot, it's a very interesting psychological thing that we have, a really cool gain that we got from it as well.
Well, the reason I bring that up is some characters can be invisibility while mounted, while some can only do it while walking. That's why I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just, we accept that's kind of a difference. And overall, I think mostly we want to view it as a combat benefit.
Yeah, we want to move away from that eye test. We want it to be clear that guy is there and he's stealth, because then it's just a much clearer interaction for all parties.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, my name's Steve.
Hi, Steve.
How will the stealth rework work with talents like Sergeant Hammer's stealth and Medivh's level 20, Dahaka's burrow?
So this was a global change. All stealth characters have this new shader. Shader is the term for what they look like visually. And so yeah, they'll be using the new stealth. We'll reconsider balance as we go with these new stealth, because obviously there's some adjustments to be had there. But an interesting one about Hammer is that since she doesn't move unless you take hover siege, but she'll actually most of the time be completely invisible while she's in ambush mode.
They get this invisibility as well. So
yeah,
Medivh gives someone invisibility, they have that new shader, but if that person stands still, they will go fully invisible. So.
Yeah. And these are all things we're testing. It's one of the reasons why we're having such a long PTR is we really want to get a feel for it, because we know there's a lot of potential changes to be made there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the right.
Okay, I was wondering if we would ever be able to pick heroes from a different method than random 3-pick on Lost Cavern custom games.
I just realized like none of us work on the brawls or whatnot. It's definitely something we could be open to. We'd love to get more feedback from you guys on how you like the brawls and the ARAM maps in custom games. We're definitely open to hearing other pitches and other ideas for that. So if you could take to our forums, we're on there quite frequently. I think Matt Villers actually posts daily, it seems like.
Except in the 2 weeks leading up to BlizzCon.
Yeah, except for these last 2 weeks. But we're always listening to our player feedback, on the forums especially. And so by all means, pitch us ideas on how we can improve that mode for you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Left,
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
So I was playing the demo on the show floor yesterday, and there's an Alexstrasza on both teams, obviously. And I realized her second heroic ability, whose name escapes me right now, you can't see where it lands when you're an ally or an enemy. Is that a balance thing, or is it something you're willing to keep an eye on?
Do you mean seeing where she's going to land?
Yes, like where all the shots are going to land. There's no telegraphing.
Got it. So originally, when we were working on that ability, I was really scared about it. So I actually had something like a 0.75 second delay on each shot and kind of like a warning on the area. It ended up making the ability feel really kind of delayed and not very responsive.
Clunky.
Yeah, clunky very much. So I was a little bit scared, but we tried just moving it down to instant. What does that feel like? It just goes off right at your mouse cursor. And it actually, it felt great. Like, it felt great as Alexstrasza, and playing against it, like, it did mean that it was something that was much harder to avoid. You can still kind of dodge her and fake her out because the shots are on that fixed interval and you can listen for the sounds. So it's more about just trying to be as evasive as possible when they're happening, and also to try not to be too much grouped up to make it more difficult for her to hit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Off to the right, please.
Hi, I was wondering if we're going to see any more split class heroes, like maybe Anduin as a holy or a shadow priest.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, multi-class, which we unveiled last year, is definitely something we're actively discussing. There's a lot of really cool things that can come out of it. There's also a lot of really shield wall parry and variant things that can come out of it as well. And so it's definitely something we're actively discussing on the team. We're listening to your guys' feedback. We're watching Carbot's animations. All these things as a whole, and we're evaluating where to go from here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Left, please.
Hey guys, so I'm a Lost Vikings main, and
Nice.
and so my question is in regards to balance changes coming to the Lost Vikings. They haven't received anything in the longest time, and also if they will eventually be accompanied by future retro characters.
So talking about the balance. So I think that overall we're okay with a lot of what Vikings does right now. That's not to say that there couldn't be improvements to be made in terms of more interesting talents or just balance adjustments. We also have to keep in mind, like, we're trying to do a ton of balance changes to a lot of heroes, and so it's not always like the highest priority, I guess, to have Vikings changes. But that being said, like, it's a matter of probably when, not really if. Like, there's definitely some cool things that we could do there. I think.
And
probably,
for your second question, I would like to see Blackthorn, but it all
Monster
comes
Trucks
down.
also would be really cool.
Right, totally.
I mean, it's like up there with dragons. Who doesn't like monster trucks?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So
maybe not Matt.
It's a matter of when. It's not about if. It's a matter.
They're on that 200, or I'm sorry, 188 strong list.
I think it's like 185 actually.
Yeah.
It goes up and down.
Yeah.
Every BlizzCon, it seems to go up a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. But thank you for your question. We definitely will consider them.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question.
Sorry.
Hi. I'm a main Medivh.
Woo! A lot of mains here today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things about Medivh is his power very much depends on your teammates understanding how to play that character. And this is really frustrating because I think people who main Medivh or play Medivh love how he plays, love the flavor, and that's probably why it hasn't been reworked, because it has a very unique flavor and role. But it is very frustrating when your teammates will not click in portals, accidentally click in portals, not know exactly what a portal is. So it is, I wonder if you guys are looking at this, if you have any plans of addressing it in the future.
So there's definitely someone we look at. Like, we're aware of that problem, and we think about it, and we're trying to figure out ways to make the Medivh players in like the quick match or even just like a variety of Hero League scenarios feel better about what they're doing and not necessarily rely always as much about what their teammates do. We also don't want to just completely break esports. Like, that's one of the things we think about, or just even high-level play. He's one of those characters before where that he has an incredibly powerful kit, and we don't want to go too far with just the raw like individual things as well. So you know, what I've discovered with Medivh in particular is that as our player base matures and as you play with more people and they kind of get used to it, and as you start watching more esports games and you're seeing what he can do, it's really cool to see players learn to actually start to do more cool and fun things, like the Stitches Gorge with Medivh portals and all sorts of fun things.
That was
like
my hope as well.
Yeah.
That my teammates will learn.
Yeah, eventually they have to learn, right? Like, they'll figure it out. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
everybody.
it for us. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.